folks, Merry Christmas! This never too late Christmas cake is really living up to its last minute title because today is Christmas Eve and I'm only now getting ready to put the marzipan and the icing on and finish it up ready for the big day. So what I have here is what's known as a double boiler. It's just a pot of boiling water with another smaller pot underneath. Ideally you'd have one which doesn't leave a gap, but we're on a boat, I have to use what I have. The reason I'm doing this might seem like a bit of a chefy way to make marzipan, but if you're going to keep this cake for a little while, then maybe uncooked egg sitting around for ages and ages isn't such a good idea. Here we go. 100 grams of icing sugar and 100 grams of caster sugar going in the pot, and 2 eggs. No shell. And then I'm just gonna carefully mix it up at first, just to get the sugar and the egg combining without making a giant mess all over my kitchen. Then I'm just going to put the whizzer in and make it foamy and frothy and about double in size. And we're using the double boiler so that the egg doesn't get too hot all of a sudden, because what you don't want is a really sugary scrambled egg. So here we are, a pale frothy mixture, and I'm just going to leave that to cool a little bit. I'm going to add a teaspoon of lemon juice and a couple of teaspoons of Almond Essence, and I'm mixing these ingredients into the liquid part of the recipe before I mix the almonds, because it's much more easy to distribute it evenly if you do it into the liquid rather than when you've got the almonds already in it. In this bowl I have a nice load of almond meal. I'm going to just mix the egg mixture straight into it, and by the time the egg is cooked, the sugar is also dissolved nicely into the mix so it doesn't end up being grainy. Okay, those were big eggs, so a little bit more almond meal. Just until we get a stiff mix. Obviously the egg mixture is still warm, and when I put it in the fridge and allow it to cool a little bit, that will also firm it up a little bit. So now I just add a tiny little bit of meal and work it together with my hands until I can get it to form a lovely ball, just like a lump of dough that will happily roll out. Then I'm putting it in the fridge to rest, and away we go. Steve just asked me, where can you get almond meal from? He's never heard of almond meal. Well, it's just ground almonds. It's available in every supermarket. This big bowl won't fit in my little boat fridge, so in a container it goes, and pop it in the fridge just to cool down. Okay, so while I'm waiting for my marzipan to firm up a little bit, I'm just going to sort out the cake ready for its toppings. First job, I've decided to make one cake instead of two. I'm going to wedge a layer of marzipan between the two levels and then make one big fat cake. That way I'm going to use a little less marzipan and a lot less icing than if I was making two cakes. So what I want now is for the cakes to perfectly match. They're close but no cigar, so I'm just gonna use this as my straight edge instead of a ruler, and if I was being really precise I could get a square rule and everything and make the corners perfect. As it's only 2 seconds to Christmas, I think we'll be doing it freestyle today, and I'll just be making the edges nice and even. So now I'm just going to paint all the edges of the cake with a little bit of vodka just to stop any more growing. Doesn't need to be a lot. Okay, just these cakes just get boozier and boozier, don't they? I don't suppose this cake is actually going to last that long, but if I did want to keep it for a long time, this is what you need to do just to prevent bad things from happening. Normally they recommend apricot jam. I couldn't get any. I've got peach, that'll do. And I've just let it down with a couple of teaspoons of hot water just to make it spread more easily. And that's the next thing to be painted on, and that's just to help the marzipan to stick. It's like glue. Okay, all done, and now the next job is to roll out the marzipan and then start building. Okay, so here I go. I've got a piece of greaseproof paper down there. That's just to help me pick it up and move it around and stuff. I'm going to give it a little shake of icing sugar just to help it not to stick so much. I'm going to have a little bit of marzipan. And this first piece is just the piece I'm going to make a rectangle to go between the layers, so I'm making it much and such a can't even say it, rectangle to start. Now, speaking of so I almost have a rectangle, good enough, and I'm just rolling it around my rolling pin so I can move it. Then wait for the camera to catch me up, and I just lay it over the cake. Trim off the extra, and I'm actually just going to stick the extra into my corners because it's going to allow me to, they're a tiny bit crumbly, and it's going to allow me to help keep the shape of the cake nicely. Okay, so we have a bit of a marzipan middle. I'm just going to give a tiny little layer of jam to help the other layer stick on top nicely. And here comes the other layer of cake. There we go. Get any gaps or low lumpy spots or whatever, fill in with a little bit of marzipan and then just smooth it over with a knife, so you're trying to have as smooth edges as you can manage. Well, that'll have to be good enough for a last minute cake. On to the icing next. So now for the icing, I'm going to separate an egg. I'm just using the white. And I'm going to beat it until it's just starting to make soft peaks. Right, that is fine. See, it's just starting, but they fall over. It doesn't want to be really firm. That is plenty good enough. I'm going to mix in a few little drops of lemon juice. Just gives it a little bit of bite. And if I had some glycerin, I'd put that in as well, especially for keeping the cake for a long time. It's not absolutely necessary, but what if you're keeping the cake for a long time, it prevents the icing from turning rock hard over time. And now I'm just gonna sift some icing sugar into the egg. You don't want lumps at this stage, so sifting is definitely a good idea. And what I'm looking for is a kind of a thick mixture that won't drip. I'm going to start with the outsides of the cake, smear it on. I'm going to make the edges somewhat smooth. They don't have to be perfectly smooth. There's going to be a ribbon around the outside, and the top I'm going to make nice and peaky so that it looked like snow's just been falling. So I'm starting on the outsides first. I was just asked whether I was worried about the fact that the icing contains raw egg white, and my answer is actually no, because generally if you were to keep the cake for a really long time, to serve it for a different occasion or much later in the day, you would probably re-ice it anyway. And the icing that's going on it now would serve as a kind of protection for the cake, but you know, dust and horrible things get on it, and so if you were keeping it for a long time, probably the icing will be rock hard by that time, and you can just peel it off and put a new load on for eating it late in the day. I mean, it will keep for a long time in an airtight container. It's not really possible to make it. I was asked whether it was possible to make it just water icing, but the thing with water icing is it will always be drippy and it will never set quite as firm. I have a little bit of edible glitter to really give it that shiny, snow-kissed look. And once the icing's had a chance to set, pretty ribbon going around the outside, and job done. Christmas and Christmas cake. And so to all our family, friends and followers, we wish you a very Merry Christmas.
And a Happy New Year.